let's take a look at how to create an audit job, and then also how we can interact with the audit information once we have gathered that information. So let's take a look here at the audit logging item under the file system node in the Enterprise Manager. So we pull this up, it shows us a list of our audit jobs, and then we click the Add button here, and it gives us a nice wizard to walk through. So let's give it a name, and we'll call this one Chili Audit. And then we need to specify a root directory. Now this root directory is a location where it's going to create all of the audit databases. We chose to store the audit information in an SQL database so that you can easily query that information from reports, from your own application, or from within the Enterprise Manager. We give you a nice tool, which you'll look at in just a little bit, for viewing that data in a way where you don't have to specify any SQL or any complex query information, but we give you that flexibility so that you can query the information if you need to in a very useful way with using SQL. So we need to specify a location here for where those databases will get created. Now the database directory that we specify here needs to be completely empty, because the only thing that should be in this directory is audit databases. And so for our example here, I'm going to put them in temp and chili audit. And then all of my databases will be put in there. Then I'm going to decide if I want to audit a named database instance or manually specify the list of directories and files that I want to audit. In this case, I want to go ahead and audit my entire database, and so I'm going to just select the chili database here. So we hit next, and now the next thing we need to do is select the database that we want to audit, and I want to audit the Chili Company database. We hit next. Then we need to determine how often we want the database to roll over, and what that means is that it will, when it rolls over, it creates an entirely new audit database that's completely empty. It leaves the old one intact, the previous one intact, but it creates a brand new one, and that way it gives you the ability to split out your audit information so that you don't have such a large audit database. So monthly, we could set it to roll over. We can do it daily or weekly or yearly. So you can specify the frequency or none if you don't want it to ever roll over. So we'll leave it at monthly, and then the rollover frequency, that would be 1 would mean every month, 2 would mean every 2 months it would roll over, and so forth. Now we need to specify whether we're using advisory locking, and then we hit next. Now notice, as with creating a replication job, it gives us the list of directories that it's going to be monitoring for our auditing. And we could add additional directories here or additional files that we want to audit. But in our case, we won't add anything here. And then we also have an exclusion page where we can exclude directories or files from our audit job. And in this case, we won't do that either. So then we just hit finish. And now we're auditing the Chili Company database. So we hit refresh there, and that shows us all of our current information here. Now we could pause this audit job if we don't want it to be auditing for the time being. And we have all those abilities right here. So now let's take a look at what the audit system puts together for us. So from here, let's first take a look at the audit database that's created. So if we double click on databases, we'll find the Chili Audit database here, and you'll notice it named the database the name of our audit job and added on the date to the end of that name. And so that indicates the date that that audit database was created. Each time that it rolls over, a new database would get created. So you would see those additional databases here. But what we can do is double click on it and open it up just like any other database. And then we can take a look at the tables that are available, and we can query these tables just like we would with any other SQL table. But we've given you a much easier way of looking at the audit data. From here you could use SQL and build any complex query and extract the information that you're interested in, and you could use that from a reporting tool or from within the Enterprise Manager or some other SQL tool. However, the easiest way is to go back to our Audit Logging Jobs panel, and then we'll select our audit job, and we click on the magnifying glass. And what the magnifying glass does is that pulls up the Audit Database Log Viewer. And this is where we can look at audit operations that are done on our database. So before we do that, we need to come over here and let's make a change to our Chili Company database. We need to do some update operations that will cause the audit system to log some information. And so what we've done here is we're going to execute an insert, an update, and a delete so that you can see several different examples. Now you'll notice here in the new SQL Explorer in the new Enterprise Manager, you can actually execute multiple statements at one time within one of the editors just simply by putting a semicolon at the end of each SQL statement. And so we have 3 here, and when we execute those, then we get some changes made. And now what we can do is come over to our Audit Log Viewer, and now we can filter the information. So what we can do here is we can select from the log database that we're interested in. In this particular case, there's only one available, but each audit database will show up in that list as it gets created. We can also select from the individual file that was modified if we're interested in audit operations just on a particular file. So in this particular case, we have 3 of our files in our database have been modified, and so those 3 modified files will show up in our list. For our particular case here, we'll just look at all 3, so we'll leave that blank. You can also specify a list of users that you're interested in seeing operations for, but we will go ahead and just include all the users. And then you can also specify the operation types. If you're only interested in delete ESQL operations or a delete record operation, you can put a check there, and then it will return only those operations, those audit operations that match that criteria. Again, we'll just leave that blank. And then we can specify a start and an end date and time. So let's go ahead and just leave all the defaults there and click the magnifying glass, and now that brings up our audit information. And then what we can do here is you can see each file that's been modified and the type of operation. And so let's take a look here at some of these operations and see how these look when we look at the additional detail that's available on each one of those operations. So let's take a look first at an insert record operation. Down here we have the customer table, the customer file that's been modified. We see an audit operation, and it tells us the operation type is an insert record type. So let's double click on that, and it pops up a dialog with information about that audit operation. And so it shows us the raw record value that was inserted into that data file. Now, if we wanted to, we could paste in a string template, and I'll show you that in our next example here. And that string template will tell us how to parse this out, and it will break it down into a nice table layout down below. And let's take a look at that now. So when we open up another operation, this one is an update record operation, and this happened on a different file, on the customer file. So let's take a look now at what we see here. We see an old record value, and then we also see a new record value. And you can look here and see these are the raw records, and you can look here and see the name that was changed from McIntyre to Ash. And if we scroll through here, we can see some of the values that are included here. But notice these numbers are kind of run together, so it's hard to tell where they are, where the separation comes in. So what we can do is put in a string template here, hit that, hit refresh, and now what it's done is it's populated these nice laid out tables for us, and it's parsed out the information according to the string template that we specified. Now we can scroll through, and you can see here it's separated out all our numbers, and now we can see that information a lot clearer. And this is very important if you're using a type I template column, or if you're using a type B or floating point or double. And so those types would show binary data that would not be useful on its own, and so by specifying the string template, we're able to see it nicely parsed and formatted for us. Now, the final type is the delete record type, and this type of operation will again pop up a nice viewer here for us, and it shows us the primary key value that was used to remove the record from the data file. And again, we could specify a string template if we want to. If that primary key value is made up of multiple columns, that might be useful for us. But on this particular dialog for the delete record operation, the string template we would specify would be one that would parse out the primary key values only. So it wouldn't necessarily be the same as the entire record. And so as you can see with these examples here, the log file viewer gives you a very quick and easy way to filter out information and return back the audit operations that you are particularly interested in. And then you can drill down further and see that detail. But again, if you need further querying capabilities, or if you need to process that information in a different way than what we provide here in this simple interface, you're always welcome to go in and run complex SQL queries against the audit database directly and extract the information that you need to gather your auditing information.